Right, joining me on Zero Pucks Given now, we have Joe Scutts of NIHL Stats fame on Twitter, and we have Chris Beal, the Stretton fan, who was commentating on the live stream with Joe at the Britton Final. Probably slightly happier last Monday than he is today. How you doing, gents?
Yeah, as you just said, slightly less happy than I was last weekend.
I'm over the moon compared to last weekend.
So, I mean, the way that you both got to the final last weekend was stark contrast, really. Streatham, fairly a tough game against Raiders, but they 6-2 in the end, so it looked a little easier than it was. And Solent obviously involved in just one of those games that the playoff semi-finals tend to throw up every now and again.
I mean, yeah, I think we didn't say it on the. I think we said it afterwards, but I think we're convinced either that second semi-final is jinxed, or Steve Osman is the jinx, because Steve Osman has been involved in both of those semi-finals, and both of them have just been absolute barn burners with just crazy finishes. But yeah, I mean, like it looked like a routine win for us. We came in against Romford and just basically we did what we do against every team, which is basically just choked off the offense. And as Joe and I kept picking up on, they didn't deny us the middle of the ice, which Solway definitely picked up on yesterday, which is the biggest reason why we lost yesterday. Which, you know, if you're going to give us the middle of the ice, Vanya Antonov's going to punish you every single time.
Yeah.
But
I mean, for you, obviously, I was unable to hear it because I was at the venue with you guys, so it was. I feel like I missed out slightly there. But how was your heart in them last couple of minutes, Joe, in that semi-final?
That was well. I mean, I've got enough stick for the fact that when Hauschka scored the third goal,
you called it, didn't you?
I called it. I said, "Jura Hauschka puts the Dynamos through to the final." And my phone, like the amount of messages I got from mates from Solent and people who were just watching the stream, just went, "Well, that's the kiss of death." It's like. Yeah, no, I've managed to go the entire first season of doing this properly, and that was the first and only one I had the entire year. But it's one of the things, like, the Devils are weird, you know, it's heart attack hockey at its finest. There was the game in Chelmsford last October with the Alex Murray goal at the buzzer, just to send it to overtime. And it's one of those things, they've just sort of become that team that seems to get those games and finish up, like, get those games where it's like 2 goals in the final minute. And yeah, Chris can attest to this. I said to him, like, you're trying to call the end of the game stuff, and my heart is going a mile a minute. It was insane. And just, yeah, I think it took a lot out of them going into that Monday. That was the problem.
Yeah, it's bound to, isn't it? I think it's similar to Chelmsford last year, actually. We alluded to the barnstorming game between Chelmsford and Bristol last year that had exactly the same finish. Bristol coming from 3-0 down to 3-3. But then, yeah, that does take a little bit out of you. I think Chelmsford were leading 2-0 in the final last year before, as you said perfectly, Stretton took control of the centre of the ice.
Yeah, I mean,
and pushed on to the win.
Scuttsy will attest to the fact that I was the one having heart palpitations that afternoon when it was 2-0 down. He kept coming over to visit me from the Solent block and being like, calm down, you're going to do this, you're going to do it. And I wouldn't believe him. And of course we ended up turning it around. But yeah, I mean, who we couldn't have predicted though that Hauschka, obviously, like the Hauschka incident would happen at the end of that semi-final, which was obviously the big turning point. And I mean, the interesting thing was we said on the commentary, will Alex Murray pull the goalie? And obviously Scuttsy said he's not likely to. And the next thing we know, Chico Cole is heading for the net, and Alex Murray has pulled this cunning plan out of his hat to send out 5 forwards and 1 defenseman.
I think we said it on comms as well. I think there was that momentary bit of shock for the Dynamos where they saw 5 guys line up at centre ice on that draw, and you could almost see the panic of what do we do here? Who's our guy? Where have they gone? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that kind of gave them that, you know, momentary lapse, which got them the second goal. And you just had that feeling where we're stood behind Alex Murray, and I'm watching him right on the whiteboard, and he's basically just gone, we'll just do it again, lads, shall we? Might as well. It won't work twice, will it? Oh,
Yeah.
it has.
Yeah, the definition of insanity: doing something several times over and expecting the same. Oh, we're getting the same result this time.
The Euro Hushka incident is something I've not actually really discussed on the podcast. I don't really know how it was up for discussion, what the outcome was, whether he was going to maybe walk through a guard of honour that weekend and left under a shadow. But it was call the incident how you guys saw it.
That was the problem. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Jim.
that's all right. It happened live, and we were still commentating on a goal, and Chris was covering the highlight and saying what he saw. Obviously, the fact that he's the only one of the two of us that's actually played hockey to a semi-decent level and actually has that experience. Me, I'm just a loudmouth.
Me too.
Yeah, exactly. It's the best kind. And the first we saw of it was when it came up on the clock. It's like, Hauschka 5 minutes, and then of course I get it buzzed over to my phone what the actual call is. And it was only after the game where we went back and checked to see if we had anything for it, and we noticed that on the replay you just see Hauschka launch his stick. We said to Chris each other time, it's like a baseball swing. It's proper swing for the fences home run job, and he's tried to obviously not clear the glass, but that's ended up what's happened. I think it was when we saw the reverse angle from the behind the goal afterwards, where it was, oh no, that's even worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, at the time we had no idea what was happening. We, as I said, I'm doing the analysis, we're watching the replay through, and then all of a sudden we look down and everything's kicking off down by the Dynamo's bench. Because
this was after we'd already dealt with Mitch Murray.
yes. That's what I thought. Like we can't reference it on the air, obviously, but like there had been an incident with Mitch Murray up on that gantry as well. So I'm thinking Murray's somehow got down there towards the bench, and Hauschka's stickers somehow ended up connecting with Murray from ice level, and then we found out later on, obviously, it was some poor unfortunate fan in the Raiders section who had been and his child who had been clobbered, unfortunately, by it.
Yeah, I think he's the young man whose son it was, as sort of said online, that Hushka came to apologise. He gave him his stick. He was very magnanimous and very, very sorry, and he's accepted that apology from him.
It's one of those things. I think we've all seen Jura Hauschka play at this level for a number of years now, be it in an Invicta shirt, a Romford shirt, a Chelmsford shirt. It's the first time I've ever seen him do anything like that, ever. And it must have just been the fact that me and Chris said it after the fact. It was just that there must have been that sense of how in the hell have we done that? Like, how have we just blown 3-1 in 58 seconds? And it's just, he's not that guy. And the fact he went over and apologised, it's not surprising to me. I don't know if
No, it's not. He's one of the nice guys of hockey, isn't he?
Yeah, he really is. He's a class act. And like, I mean, if you add in the fact that if it is true that that was his retirement game and he was going to go out with the Guard of Honour, or planning to go out with the Guard of Honour the next day in the final, obviously his emotion is going to be up at that point. Because he's just seen what he thought was the trip to the final tomorrow is now evaporating before their eyes. So you can kind of, I mean, you not understand hitting a fan, obviously, but you can understand his frustration and why it was so out of character for him, really. Yeah,
probably the only rink in our league, especially, where that would have happened, because there's no netting in the middle of Milton Keynes, is there? There's
no.
Yeah, so possibly would have been safer elsewhere, but
yeah,
not condoning baseball swings of hockey sticks into crowded areas. So into the final then. Joe, did you think it was all over after 35 seconds?
Not so much after 35 seconds. I thought we were in trouble when the second one went in. We said it both games that featured the Redhawks in it. To beat Streatham, you have to be perfect, which is something that Solway were at the weekend, something Solent weren't. And the fact that the first shift, you have that momentary brain fart from Chico, which is rarer than rocking horse excrement. And that leads to the easiest goal Streatham will score possibly all year. You kind of knew it was coming at that point. Streatham are a team where if you let them get on top of you, then they just beat you into submission. And of course, as soon as it's 2-0, it was just goals in bunches. It was that 2 in the first period. It's that 2 in, 15 seconds in the second, and it's 4-0. At that point, it was just a case of, well, they can just shut this down and keep you at arm's length. There's nothing you can do about it. They don't need to score again. And it's one of those things. It's always going to be a case of what could have been. Me and Chris said it several times during the game of Stretham's era of dominance just happens to have been at the same time that Solent had a golden age of players come through. And the fact that, Streatham have, correct me if I'm wrong here, Chris, is it 6 titles, I think, in the last 3 years? League, double.
Oh god, even I can't count them now at this point.
League, 6. It's 6. There was one league.
That's not me trying to be arrogant. It's just I've completely forgotten.
I think it's 6, and the fact that Solent all they got for it is 5 straight runners-up medals is for league titles. That goes back to the 2 in South 2. The loss. I think there is that sense of frustration of what could have been given another day, and if they'd started better on the Monday, it would have been different. You can't give a team like Streatham a 2-goal lead and expect to catch up on it.
Sorry, Chris. I was going to say for the second goal, something that I'm sure you see week in, week out. What Vanny did was just disgusting.
Oh yeah, I mean, some of the goals Vanya Antonov scores should come with a parental warning. Just the way he cuts out of that corner and just roofs it. I mean, he's always, every time he cuts out that corner, if you let him cut out that corner, he's going to hurt you. And he'll either look for what we've done this year is Danny Inglesby and Ziggy Beasley will hang the net somewhere in that center area. And if Vanya can't find them, he'll just go for it himself. I mean, that's the thing is I compared him at one point and it got an interesting reaction from the fans. I was saying I compared him to sort of like the Wayne Gretzky of NIHL 1 South at one point, because he loves that area he loves being in Gretzky's office behind the net.
Yeah.
And he loves creating from there. And everyone seems to remember him more for his goal scoring. But if you look at his stats, he generally tends to be more of an assist generator than a goal scorer.
Well, that second goal was the assist. I think he evaded board check 3 times.
Yeah.
And then fed Ben Painter, who finished brilliantly top shelf.
Oh no, that was sorry. I'm getting.
Was it Warman?
It was James Warman. Warman stepped in off the blue line and smashed it.
Yeah, we had it down as Painter, but
yeah, we did it. We did it on the broadcast as well. We were convinced it was Warman, and they announced it as Painter, and then it got corrected later. But I mean that's the umpteenth time now I've credited one of James Warman's goals to somebody else. Because I've done it several times on the Twitter updates with where I've just seen a flash of a 3 on the jersey and had to guess because the PA hasn't announced it quick enough in the rink, and ended up giving it to James Warman, and it was actually scored by Josh Ely Newman.
But there was as I say, the game finished, I think was it 5-1, wasn't it, in the end?
Yeah.
And the Streatham crowd that were there enjoyed the celebrations. There was a larger Solent crowd there on the Monday than there was the Sunday, which was good to see. But I think it was still only a total of about sort of 450 people in a rink that holds 2,000. Do you think it's time for the 2-legged final to return?
I think maybe potentially. I mean, the problem for our lot was basically everything out of London up to Milton Keynes trains wise was completely cancelled that weekend. So unless you were driving up and staying, you weren't going to be there.
Easter weekend for public transport does make it difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I was lamenting the fact that there was pretty much we're in Milton Keynes for the weekend and there's absolutely nothing to do because nothing is open.
Can confirm that he was whinging all day Sunday that he couldn't go anywhere.
Well, I wanted to go to the Sci-Fi Museum, but we didn't have time and it wasn't open. But yeah, I mean, it might be nice to see a return of the 2-legger because it's nice to have that intensity over 2 nights, and I mean, it could have opened things up for more of a chance for Solent because they have that off first game against us, and then the next night there's the potential of the comeback on home ice, say for example if the seedings work in their favour. I mean, I am inclined more to say that if there's only going to be about 450 people, we maybe need to look at moving it to somewhere. I mean, where in South you can move it to, but where move it somewhere smaller, like maybe the Romford rink.
They're still relatively central, I
Yeah.
suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Romford one to the south teams.
Yeah.
It'll never come to Chelmsford. Everyone hates us too much.
You'll never get 400 people in Solent.
And
I think I've been to 4 of these now. I've been to 2 in the south, 2 when they were at the John Lyke in Bracknell, and done the 2 in south, 1 at Milton Keynes. And I like the idea of the playoff weekend. You know, you look at Coventry, you look at Nottingham, you look at all the photos and videos you've seen from the past week, and you know it's rammed and it's a real party atmosphere. And I've always felt in the 4 that I've been to, there just hasn't been that. It's always been that, you know, the fan base of the 4 teams that are there are always there on day 1. And then day 2, if your team's not in the final, they don't turn up. I mean, I think on a Monday, I didn't see a single person from Oxford or Milton Keynes, like in a jersey. You could see everyone else there, you know, Chelmsford, Invicta were to our left and right. You could see the Solent block was pretty full. Streatham's block was pretty full. The Invicta fans stayed off to our right. But then you're just looking around, like you said, it's 400 people in a 2,500 seat arena. And I went to the Lightning Tigers game on a Saturday, and that place was rammed. You know,
it was rammed.
Yeah.
I stood ringside. Chris was with his mates, and you know that place was rocking when there was an atmosphere to it, and it always felt just a little bit flat over the weekend. And I know from the professional side of me has heard a rumor that apparently they are looking at getting rid of the playoff final weekends because they just haven't done the numbers that Coventry or Nottingham have done. And I think teams are more likely to want to go back to the 2-legged thing. At least they can go with that and say they've tried to do finals weekends.
Yeah.
They just haven't really kicked on as much as they kind of hoped they would be.
I don't know if it's something to do perhaps with the sort of the cost of living stuff that's going on at the moment, because I think the ticket is great value for a weekend of hockey. The ticket's incredibly good value. And then it's getting everybody there, isn't it? You pretty much from everywhere, unless Milton Keynes by some sort of stretch of miracle make it to the playoff finals. You've got to stay there really, because it's a pretty long way from everywhere. It's hour and a half from Chelmsford, probably 2 hours up from Solent, and coming through London, like you say, if you're going to drive, it could take you up to 5. So but they're the 2-legged final will give each team the opportunity to sell out their home rink and make a bit more money as well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And as I said, also, going back to it, it really makes it less of a foregone conclusion, I think, because all we needed was one perfect game, but playoff weekend 2-game format, you need 2 perfect games to win it.
Yeah, or even to differentiate it from the cup, even a 3-game series, if they could work out logistically how to do that.
I would love British hockey to do elimination series, with some of the rivalries you have in British hockey. I think that I don't know how well mine and Joe's hearts would hold up to it, but I think a best of 3, best of 5 between us and Solent, would be immense. Because I mean, Solent showed over the course of the last 3 seasons, even though they've always come up with the silver medal against us, they have had those 1 games where they end up just somehow pulling one out of the bag. I mean, those 2 nights where Chico Cole came into Streatham and stood on his head. If he can, if he does that again in a multi-series playoff format, that's it. That gives Solent the gold medal.
Yeah, it's I think it's something that would really work. I think the fans would love it. I think the players would love it as well. We've had a 10-game series with Invicta. Unfortunately for us, we've had 8 defeats, 1 draw, 1 win. But they certainly have had our number this year. Yeah, and we were sick of the sight of each other come the end of the season.
I think I described it, to make a wrestling reference, I described you guys as the Zane and Owens of NIHL 1 South. You were destined to do this forever.
Yeah, the living embodiment of fight forever.
So, I mean, as a whole, then we'll sort of work our way up the table. I'm doing a full season review with Anthony Russell from Banners on the Wall next week. But as we've got you guys here, we may as well do your clubs now. So if we go for Solent in second, when I spoke to Alex before and after the games of the weekend, I remarked what an incredible season they've had. That the performances has actually been their away form that sparkled this year. How's the season gone in your eyes, Joe?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think I said in the playoff program that, the Devils were basically road warriors all year. They lost 2 games on the road all season. One was on the high road just after Christmas, and the other was a game in Slough at the end of the season when Chico decided that a night at the UFC was more important. But the home form was obviously a bit of an issue, and I've always maintained the whole thing with the Devils. They've always needed that mix of players who are very fast with their hands for home games, but then they want those speed guys for road trips, and that's something they really had this year, especially when they brought in Ryan Sutton, Steve Osman later in the year. You could really tell that they were kicking on at the right time. I think if you look back in the hindsight of it, there was 2 weekends really which defined our season, and sadly in both of them we came out on the losing side of it. One was the Cup semi-final against Invicta, where for some reason or not, the Dynamos just had our name for the 2 games, and they came into Solent and drew 5-5, and then did enough to beat us the Sunday, and then the weekend just gone in the playoffs. The 2 big moments we maybe didn't show our best. There's been performances all through the year. I mean, there was a comeback against Slough early in the season where, again, dead and buried, came back and win it just before overtime. There's, the second win on the high road in 3 years because Chico Cole does Chico Cole things, and it's one of the things. I'm going to be interested to see what happens going forward. I mean, I'll touch on it here. You lose 4 big parts of that team in Chico Cole, Ben Locke, Jamie Fitzpatrick, Mark Pitts, and Muzz, I think, said it to you as well and said it to me. It's like it's an end of an era thing. They've got to try and rebuild it now, and I'll be interested to see what they do, who they go out and get, because I've always said to Chris and to other people whoever will listen to me, it's like Streatham will always be the best team in that league for this run. This run from 2019 to present day, they will be the best team in South 1. They will have the best forwards in Vanya Antonov. They've had the best D-men in like Michael Farn, Leek Martelli. You can make a case for Sam Waller. But they never had the best netminder in this league.
No.
And it's one of those things. I don't care. Like, rivalries aside, be it Chelmsford, Invicta, Streatham, Milton Keynes, Oxford, whoever you want to name, Chico Cole was hands down the best netminder South 1 will ever see.
And I always agree with him on that.
And that's me being incredibly biased, but the numbers back it up. I had to do it for his... There's a post coming out at some point, if Alex ever posts it, where his career save percentage for the Devils was 920. Like, there are netminders in the world who'd kill to have a 920 save percentage for a year, let alone a 10-year career.
That's interesting. Luca Tosada is on this episode later, so we'll see what he has to say about that.
I love Luca.
Luca's
one of the very few players this year who messaged the NIHL stats account to say both, thank you for everything you're doing. It's really good. Oh, and by the way, can you make sure the shot counts, bumped up a little bit so I, it's got to look good on my elite prospects page, It's like,
right. I love it. I get messages from his dad whenever he's played against us asking for the shot count because for the exact same reason. But I mean, yeah, Luke, I mean, he came in a couple at least once this season and absolutely frustrated our offense and got them. It was a bit of a dead rubber game because I think it was the one in the cup where we couldn't qualify at that point. But pride still at stake at that point, and you guys came in and played an absolutely perfect road game, and Luca was a big part of that. And as much as it frustrates me that he plays for somebody else, I absolutely love to watch him play. But I mean, going back to Chico, I will always agree with Joe, rivalry aside again, that Chico is the best netminder in this league and has been for the past 3 seasons, and he's been the reason why whenever Solent have beaten us, he's been the reason why. He's just stood on his head, and I think it was summed up quite perfectly when Ryan Watt said to you the night before the final, like Chico was the last goalie they wanted to see at the other end of the ice the next day.
Yeah. There's 2 games that will always stand out in my head. One is the first Streatham game in 2019 where he walks into that barn, stops 66 shots, and we walk out with a win. And I remember going over there. One of the Streatham players' mums just walks over to me and just says, "Oh, he's doing that again, is he?" Yeah. And the other is it's the game in Streatham from last season, which we won in a shootout, and he stopped 73 shots that night. And you just had that sense of, and again, much like Ben's just done now, they're just Chelmsford fans all around the route, like, how?
Yeah. He's come to the Riverside and done it. He's done it to us at the Riverside as well. It's
one of those things, you just had to stand there and just, like, some nights they were just like, how? I don't know how.
Because it's like our offense is like it's a multi-headed hydra. Like if Vanya doesn't score, Danny's going to score. If Danny doesn't score, there's a chance Ziggy gets a dirty one on the doorstep. If Ziggy doesn't, Skokan gets one. The Ely Newman brothers, Ryan Watt, cut off one head and two more scorers take their place. And
it's embarrassment
Chico,
of riches he keeps going on about, Joe.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I know. It's such a hard life he leaves in South London.
But that's going to be a big man to replace down at Gosport is Chico Cole. There's obviously your reserve netminder who was there that night is also a perfectly capable netminder, but the netminders like your Chico Coles, Luke Tassadris. I'd probably go with Sonny Phillips as well, another former Chelmsford thing. They're talisman in the crease, and they can win games on their own. Which Absolutely. And it's something that's been said amongst Chelmsford fans to me as well, that everyone in the league respects how good Streatham are, and with no disrespect to Milts or to a Nets or anything like that, they've all said if they had a Luca, a Sonny, or a Chico, they'd win everything, every season.
Oh yeah,
it'd be the Thanos snap argument.
Yeah. I mean, I've always said if I won the lottery, the first thing I'd be doing if I took over Stratton would be I'd fire the money cannon at Chico Cole.
It would have to be a big money cannon now. I think
it would be.
Work commitments have dragged him away for the week. But we spoke on the Monday, Joe. You don't think it will be away permanently?
I don't know. I know I got a feeling that he was obviously really upset. There's the videos you've got and there's pictures doing rounds. You could see the emotion in his face that he knew he made the decision. And I like to think that there is enough young and up and coming netminders down at Solent nowadays that Chico won't exactly be a stranger there. There's so much knowledge, there's so much skill and talent there that he could easily walk into just doing a coaching session every fortnight there and pass on enough talent that they'll learn more. Like Tyler Campbell, Drew Campbell's son, who was playing in the twos in the NHL 2 team this year. He's one of those kids that could be phenomenally good in a few years' time. Our NHL 2 team was bobbins this year, and there were there's games he's walked in there and robbed teams. There's a game against Peterborough at home where he stopped like 55 shots, and Peterborough finished 5th, I think, behind Invicta, and a game against the Fire as well in Cardiff as well. So a long road trip, and then you go and win with 11 skaters. It's one of those things. Chico will be he's a sad loss to the sport, but I hope he doesn't stay away for too long. Enjoy his holiday, come back and help out the kids a bit.
So, something that may affect both teams, because it's probably sort of equal distance between the two, that we haven't got Basingstoke Bison in the National League next year. So would their players keep their skates sharp in Streatham or in Solent perhaps for a season?
Well, I mean, they both have connections within both camps. I mean, I've heard rumours over the weekend in Coventry about a few Bison players that might be coming our way, and I mean, I've eyed up that roster. There's certainly a few players that I wouldn't mind seeing in a Streatham jersey. But I could see some of the Bison players coming to us. It's all based basically like who's willing to make that long journey from Hampshire up to us in southwest London for training, for training, and then obviously the games on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not the easiest place in London to get to. I mean, it's not quite Twickenham, but it's not the easiest place.
No, I was quite lucky. I used to live 5 minutes walk around the corner from the arena, but now I'm now living in Croydon, so it's a bit. But it's obviously a bit more difficult for if you're a Hampshire-based hockey player to get here.
I'm Hampshire-based. I get a slough every week. Don't give me that nonsense. I've heard there's a few doing rounds. I know there's a couple potentially looking at Gosport. I know there's more than a few who are staying in the National League in a rink, like I said, that has a South One team in it that tried to go national. There's going to be loads of rumours. The problem is with Basingstoke now for this year is essentially it is just, here teams come and feast at the all-you-can-eat buffet. Come take your pick of what you want and have them on loan for the year.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see how many want to stay at the national level and give it a year playing for a different team, or how many want to maybe a bit easier go down to South One and potentially go and run through another train with Streatham because they haven't won enough trophies in the last few years.
Well,
Hey,
some
mate,
thought.
Sorry,
Go on, Chris. No, go
So
on.
I was going to say, mate, I've said it on Twitter. I think it's like the plaques. They remind me of the Beskar ingots from the Mandalorian. So we've got to complete our suit of Mandalorian armor at some point.
And at some point as well, we're going to have to sit here and just discuss Star Wars and Marvel and DC and not hockey, because I think we'd be here for longer.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So at the start of your season, Chris, there was a few people that actually thought this might be the year that someone pips you. You had a few sort of players, Lee, obviously Farney left, Malik went on a two-way to Milton Keynes, where he did get quite a fair bit of ice time. Ben Painter stepped up into your coaching role, but then you've had some real good quality youngsters come through as well this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the great thing this year to actually see, is because my criticism, especially during the Jeremy Cornish time, was we didn't have any depth. We had these very compacted but reasonably good quality rosters, but if anybody got hurt, we would basically be down players. And we kind of had that a little bit as well during the Farney period. And then this year with Ben bringing on Oxenden, Toombs and Maslak, and they've really fit in really great. I mean, you wouldn't expect Emil Oxenden and Preston Toombs like their first game. I think Oxenden created one of the goal that sealed the game for Ben Painter in his first game, and Maslak got 2 goals a few weeks later again in that sellout home game against Invicta. It's good to see that we've got something in the pipe. I mean, as we said, oh woe is us with our treasure treasure chest of riches, but it's good to not have to, when I do the team sheets before Twitter, to go down it now and not have to worry about, oh, we're a bit short here and there. I don't know whether because we had that early season blip where we lost over those 2 weeks, first to Solent and then obviously we lost to you guys, and it was like, and we weren't winning games the way that we had the couple of seasons before. We weren't winning by the ridiculous cricket scores. We were
NK Thunder.
Yeah. That's an exception to the rule. It did have me asking if somebody was going to pip us, but then something just seemed to click in them after those 2 losses, and they just went on that ridiculous run towards the end of the season.
I don't think you were defeated until after the title was confirmed.
Yeah. Yes. I believe.
Who did that out of interest?
Yeah,
that was at Chelmsford. And to be fair, I did actually note in that episode of the podcast in my match report, you were quite short benched, and I would imagine there was been some celebrations had.
Oh yeah,
but we did put you to the sword.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the thing though, as we say, we've mentioned how Chico has obviously been responsible for, and Solent have obviously beaten us, but you guys beat us 3-0 last season. I remember last season, we started that season on a roll, and then we rolled into Chelmsford, and you guys turned us over 3-0, and even that gave me pause for thought, because again, it was like this ridiculous offense that we have, and you guys just shut it down. And I mean, I've always said, Chico Cole is obviously the best netminder in the league. I think Sonny Phillips is the next best behind Chico, and I think he's probably going to be the biggest free agent coming into this off season in that goalie free agency market.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have spoken very briefly with Sonny. He doesn't know what he's doing. We're not sure as to yet. We don't even know what Luca is doing as yet. There's possibilities of university. We don't know what Peter Cech is doing, although his new pads may suggest he's staying. He's had a new pad set with some black and gold in them. But yeah, like I say, it could be a bit of a merry-go-round this year with some of the players being available from the national. As Joe alluded to, I had heard somewhere that Slough were going to attempt that jump.
I know they tried it, and I know that despite tweets that you read and whatever posts that you might see, that it was never going to happen. Like everyone would like to blame the bees for it, and the story doesn't fit what actually happened, if that makes sense.
But the thing as a whole, obviously, when the NIHL announced that they've got their 10 teams for next year and that's locked in, that was kind of all put to bed. But I think, I don't know if you guys agree or have another method on it, that the 1 and 2 need a reshuffle. 8 teams in our league and 13 in the one below is a massive discrepancy. There's no drama for playoffs in our league. There's at least 3 teams down there that could hack it in the 1, and I think probably for their own good, MK Thunder should probably be dropped to the 2.
Me and Chris have had this discussion several times. There's teams in NHL 2 that you could come up and, again, if you believe rumours, I think one of the ones I saw recently was that Lee Valley were meant to come up to South 1, and I've seen Haringey obviously show the ambition to want to come up to South 1. They'd be nice, and who wouldn't want to make 2 trips to Ali Pally each year?
Yeah, lovely.
Least?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure when Lee Valley's finished, that'll be a nice trip.
Absolutely. Me personally, I feel that hockey in this country is heading for something quite massive in just the terms of, again, it goes back to the whole cost of living thing, how much everything is at the moment, and just the way leagues higher up the pecking order are run. I mean, I'm not a fan of 15 imports in the Elite League. I said the ideal system would be 8-4-2-1. So 8 in the Elite League, 4 in the National, 2 in South 1, 1 in South 2. And because it just helps the Brits. We should be helping Brits and come through. And, the whole thing of the National League's roster limits for this year and, allowing import goalies again. And, the glass ceiling shrinks ever further. And I think, with the Elite League, you've always heard rumours of the Scottish teams want out and, Solway want up into the National League. And if you could get something like Fife, Dundee, some of the SNL teams, the National League could be truly national, and then you'd have some of them drawn a drop down into a North and South. And I think once more we're going to end up with in a few years' time with just more merry-go-round circus of hockey clubs in different levels, and we're not going to get anything in the terms of forward momentum in terms of a GB squad producing talent.
No, I do agree with the import thing. I think they have upped it to 3, haven't they, for next year?
It's 3 in all leagues. It hasn't been announced yet. It's 3 in all leagues. It was a line in that National League thing, and that's since been confirmed.
Yeah, a few people didn't quite know how to read it, whether it just meant the National or it meant all leagues. And I took it that the roster limits were in the National, but the 3 imports and the import goalies was in all leagues.
Spoilers, roster limits are confirmed in all leagues as well.
Interesting.
Okay. Because that clashes with
there are different regs to the National League, but I'm led to believe that there is going to be a roster limit in South 1 and South 2 and North 1 North 2.
Okay.
So the import goalie one is a funny one for us, because we, as Chelmsford fans, possibly other UK hockey fans, I don't consider Peter Cech to be an import. He's lived and worked in this country for over 20 years. Yes, he wasn't trained here as an ice hockey goalie, but he could get a British passport if he wanted to. So the import goalie rule, I think, will possibly help Chelmsford if he stays, because we've got a Ukrainian lad in our setup who is legit. Really looking forward to seeing more of him. Finished the season fantastically when Tassardri was keeping check on the pine. So it was... as much as it was Tassardri keeping check on the pine, it was also Sasha Maltsev playing that good that there was no point in playing check.
It's one of those things. In the summer, I help out with a cricket league down on the south coast, and one of the things I've had to do this year is help out with registering overseas players. And it's just been interesting that one of the rules that the government have in terms of overseas players for club cricket is that if a person lives over here for a year and is here for 210 days, that player then counts as a Brit the next season. And it's with someone like Petr Cech or with like Drew Campbell on the South Coast, who has lived here, like I say, lived here for longer than they've lived in their home country. How can they not count as a Brit at this point?
Well, the National was going to had that rule a few seasons ago, and they seem to have abandoned it. Where they were going to, like, if an import did, I think it was like 2 seasons over here, they would then be classed as a Brit a couple of seasons later. And then they've just abandoned it. But I mean, the interesting thing with that, I mean, obviously, as we said, like, we're going back to the merry-go-round with the goalies. It's like that import now that handshake agreement is gone. Again, that makes the goalie market at this level very, very interesting again, because who's going to be ejected from national teams in term for an import goalie.
Yeah, so there could be more British ones available to step down.
Yeah, and just British players in general with the age limit things.
Yeah.
Yeah, if them roster limits do come in, then that's going to change. That will change a few teams' rosters, I'm sure. Yeah. But no, excellent. We're looking forward into next season then. Chris, we'll go with you. What do you see happening down at Streatham next year?
Well, hopefully, we more of the same. It's going to be it's all going to depend on who Ben manages to convince to come back from this season. Because I mean, I've already heard of a couple of elements of the roster that are departing elsewhere. But I mean that's hockey. You get to the end of the season and there's turnover. But I mean, the great thing about this roster is that it's a bit cliche, but they are like a band of brothers. They stick together. They've stuck together through all this, and I think there'll be a large contingent in that locker room who view what happened on Sunday as, okay, this is unfinished business for us. We go again next year. We go for the league title, and we go to Coventry again, regardless of whether it's facing Solway or whoever. We go again, and that I think they'll. I mean, I can off the top of my head, I can definitely say I'd say Ryan Watt probably will definitely want to come back and have another go at it. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the net with Tom Annette's retiring. I'd love it if we could hopefully convince Danny Milton to stay and do a full-time gig for us, because he only played something like, I think, like started 6 or 7 games for us this season. Joe, you're the stats
man.
7.
7 in the regular season. He started the 1 game in the playoff quarterfinal, the semi-final, the final, and yesterday. So 11 in total.
We just got that minimum requirement through for him. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, if like the one I'm desperate for us to keep hold of, I know a lot. I had a lot of national level fans coming up and saying that Skokan bloke is quite handy. Like, if the fans have noticed, that means national level owners will probably have noticed.
Yeah.
So potentially Thomas will be probably getting some interest from the higher level. But I hope we can keep hold of him, because I still am flabbergasted we got him. Just because if you look at his record, like, he's played Continental Cup hockey, he's played at the highest level in Poland, and when we signed him, I was like, what is this guy doing here? This guy is a national level import. I don't understand what
we said it on the comms for the weekend. He's played on teams with guys who've played in the Elite League, and put up numbers in the Elite League. What's he doing in South One?
Yeah, what is he doing? Like, I have no idea what his reason for being here, but I'm happy he's with us, and I hope he stays with us next year.
So, Joe, it looks like a big rebuild for Solent next year then.
It's going to be a big rebuild. You can't lose 4 guys who are integral to what the Devils were in one fell swoop. Steve Osman, I know. I would like to see him back. I don't think he will be, because obviously his connections to Bristol, and he basically only was a Devil because they messed up on the amount of games he'd played. But we'll take it. I think the big thing for the Devils, and I think it's something they've already worked on, is how many players from Basingstoke can they get in. You're not going to be able to get all of them, but can you get some that can contribute at this level? Because Alex Murray, for all of his eccentricities, is a phenomenal coach, and he uses systems very well. And once players buy into those systems, the Devils are a very difficult team to beat, as everyone can attest to nowadays.
Yeah.
The big thing is obviously you you cannot possibly replace the man between the pipes. Mark Duffy, if he's back and if he's the starter, is basically staring at an unenviable job. It's a job that no one within a 300-mile radius of the South Coast would want to try and step in that shoes. I'd like to think that the Devils will be able to push Streatham again, or whoever, if it's Invicta, if it's Chelmsford, if it's Slough. I know for a fact that team will be willing to take on all comers. They'll welcome them down to Gosport, and they will try and send them back packing. And it shows the difference that from a decade ago, where Solent, you saw them walk into your barn, it was an easy 2 points. I've been doing the history start side of it, and you're looking at trips to Chelmsford where they're losing 12-0 and 11-0, and I made the mistake of the first away game I went to was in Streatham, and they lost 9-0. Thanks, guys. And now they're going there, and they're now a team that people are scared of, and it's a testament to the amount of work Alex and others have put into that club over the last decade. So whether they can rebuild it from what it has been, I don't know. Can they do it? Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, I don't think we'll be having as big a rebuild this year at Chelmsford as we had last year, because obviously we lost 5 through retirement last year, and then an extra 4 sort of going elsewhere. 2 of them did come back. Ethan Reid came back to us from Raiders. Matty Turner U-turned on his retirement.
I still have no idea how Ethan Reid didn't get a fair crack of it at Romford. I'm sorry. Last year, he was the most eye-catching player on the team that you didn't know beforehand. And the fact that, a National League team basically decided, after 20 games is ridiculous. I'd have him at the Bees in a heartbeat. Yeah,
he's actually in Australia at the moment.
All right for some, isn't it?
Yeah. Holidaying, I hope, not playing out there, because they've just started out there, haven't they? But we've got Lewis Clifford coming in as head coach this year, so we could possibly see a little bit of Milton Keynes drifting down the M1 to Chelmsford. But we'll.
Hey, Alex White's available. I wonder where he's going.
I did hear he was available. Yeah, did follow me on social media the other day as well. I won't read anything into that. But so I'm really looking forward again to the next season. I know all the lads are looking forward to having a bit of a break throughout the summer, and look forward to how we go next year. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. I am at some point going to go listen back to the stream and listen to your commentary, particularly of them last 90 seconds of the semi-final.
Yeah, I'd quite like to listen back to it as well, because I haven't actually seen a link or anything yet.
I was told that they were going to do highlights packages. I don't know where they've got to yet. So
I know it took them a while to come out last year. I think it was June before they came out last year.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to harass Tim, our cameraman, who was very much one of the unsung hero of our little trio that weekend. He did a brilliant job putting up with me and Joe in his ear all weekend.
But I know producers everywhere need that.
Yeah, and was also brave enough to try and get Mitch Murray out of the way when he was in front of blocking the camera shot at one point as well.
I know they were showing highlights of last year's semi-finals during the breaks and the periods and whatnot. And one of the Chelmsford fans showed me on the Monday that we were watching this yesterday, and then this highlight of this goal came up, and it was a Cam Bartlett goal in the Bristol game. And then the camera panned round to this goon in a white Chieftains jersey doing that, and I was like, "Oh no!"
Oh no, I'm here. Well, at least we know we've both done it now. You've got that clip. I'm going to have Hauschka sends them through to the final.
I know.
Chris, it's all down to you next.
Next season, I've got to have the howler.
Yeah. Excellent, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure we'll bump into each other at some point next season.
Yep, no doubt.
Cheers, gents.
See ya.